So today let's talk about power, specifically the Anker SOLIX C300 DC power station, which is such a cute little bugger, but don't be deceived by its size. This thing still packs a punch for your power hungry stuff. How much power, you ask? Well, how about 90,000 milliamp hours, 288 watt hours, and 300 watts of power output? And it does this while being ultra portable, like 30% smaller than the industry average, light enough to carry around or sling it over your shoulder with this dandy strap. It has 7 ports, including something I thought was pretty impressive, and that is the two-way 140 watt USB-C fast charging power delivery ports. And I'll show you more about that in just a few minutes. One thing that is super nice as well is that even though Anker SOLIX is sponsoring this video, I'm simply a big fan of Anker products and happy to test them out. When they asked me to test a product for them like this one, I approach it as an opportunity to share my honest feedback about the things I like and maybe some things that I don't like quite so much, and they let me tell you about it honestly rather than asking me to say certain things or take out any criticisms like some brands would, so I respect them for that. That's one of the reasons you'll find that Anker products scattered around my studio and with me when I'm out on the drone job, and excited to add this new power bank to my lineup. Anker stuff is always top notch and have something innovative, and the C300 DC is no exception. One thing is the simplicity of adding the shoulder strap, and I know this is a small thing, but I didn't even notice this initially, but look how cleanly the clip is integrated into the handle here for hooking up the strap. It flips out so the strap can be clipped on easily, and that's what I mean, just the attention to detail. And the pop-out light is so interesting. It can be used in the collapse position. Let's see if I can turn this on here. There we go. So it can be turned on in the collapse position just to give you a little glow. It can come up partially. It can come up to light up the whole room, and I'm not sure if they intended it this way, but it can also be directional. So let's say you have it sitting here and you want to light up this side of the room, you can do just that. You can do a partial, you can do just back, forward. I mean, it's very innovative. And not only does it light up, but you have 3 different brightnesses as well by toggling this button. I was recently out doing some drone flights, and I needed to keep many pieces of gear charged at the same time, including my phone, multiple drones, 2 cameras, tablet, PC, and I was constantly switching things in and out and charging multiple things at the same time, and the C300 DC kept up like a champ. I did keep the 100-watt solar panel plugged in just to keep the power bank topped off all day, and mentioning the solar panel, this thing just screams quality. It's a plush fabric material on the outside, and there are these little feet on it that can be adjusted so it can be matched to the angle of the sun, and that's important at this time of year when the sun's really low. During my lunch break, the solar panel recharged the unit nearly 30% in an hour, and it could have charged it from 0 to 100% in 3 hours if it would have needed it. I used the C300 DC in this case because I didn't need AC for anything, and it has more high power outputs in such a compact size than any of the other power banks I've used, and namely the 2 15-watt USB-A's, the 1 15-watt USB-C, 1 100-watt USB-C, 2 140-watt power delivery 3.1 USB-C ports, and a 120-watt cigarette lighter socket. On a side note, isn't it interesting that we still call this a cigarette lighter port? Though I remember this actually being used for a cigarette lighter, and I can neither confirm nor deny that I may have used one in the past myself, but when was the last time you actually used a real cigarette lighter socket to actually light a cigarette? Let me know in the comments if you're one of the cool kids or not. Anyway, I digress. I mentioned earlier about the dual 140-watt power delivery USB-C ports, and these are so cool because not only can you use these for charging your devices, these can be used for simultaneously charging the power bank. Yes, 280 watts of charging input, meaning that you can charge the C300 DC in just over an hour. I wanted to test out how this dual charging works, so I plugged in a couple of my devices and was amazed at just how fast this thing can charge. And if you're out and about, you can also charge this with the cigarette lighter port from your car into the XT60 port as well for a charge in about 2.5 hours. Earlier you might have noticed that I do own multiple Anker SOLIX power banks, and that's because there's simply not a power bank that meets every need at every time. The C300 DC, for instance, is a brand new model, and it is significantly smaller and lighter than the C300 DC, but it has fewer features and slightly lower output specs. And I can hear you now saying, but Keith, why not just get the C300 DC then? Well, let me tell you a little story. When I was in college, and yes, I know it's unbelievable that I went to college, I was in an electronics class and we were discussing the design of DC circuits. And the subject was how to properly size capacitors so they did not fail under normal use. So smartly I confronted my professor with, why bother sizing them then? Just pick a big one and it won't fail. Note to self, don't be a smart aleck in the middle of class. It's not good for your grades. The answer I was given is that sizing things appropriately for their use saves on space, saves on weight, and saves on cost. Now, it didn't seem like a big thing at the time, but the same theory applies here. If I can save space, weight, and cost while still getting all my needs met with charging, then why not? After all, it does have 5 charging ports, including 2 USB-A's, 3 USB-C's, and the solar charging XT port. And if you're out hiking in the woods and this meets your needs, then having this smaller and lighter is a huge win with no drawbacks. The same can be said for the C300. It is larger in size, is about 30% heavier, and has 8 ports, including 3 AC ports and a 140-watt two-way power delivery USB-C port. And if your needs are that you need AC outputs to run your devices or less than 10 millisecond UPS function, like maybe you need it for a CPAP backup or something like that, then this would be a better choice for you. The cool thing is that regardless of which one meets your needs, they all have the Life PO4 battery type that is one of the safest batteries out there, and they have 3,000 cycle, 10-year lifetime, and smart temperature control that monitors up to 100 times per second, so they're pretty robust designs. And not only the electrical is robust, the structure is built to be impact resistant. It just feels dense and really well made. And something I noticed while using these is that they're very quiet as well. There's no obnoxious fan cycling on and off when charging or when in use. And of course, these are all compatible with the Anker app via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, so you can change the settings, do firmware updates, or view status of everything. And opening the app, you can see that it immediately found all 3 of these power banks, and they're all integrated really well into this single app. If I open the C300 in the app, for instance, you can see that I have a couple things going on, and it shows the remaining usage, how many watts each port are putting out or taking in. You can turn the light on and off, or at different intensities. And the little nut thing up in the corner accesses a bunch of detailed setup parameters, and then you can customize the settings like unit timeout, carport savings mode, screen brightness, light timeout, and some of the technical details like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, unit settings, serial numbers, and firmware version. And before I forget, if you're enjoying this video or learned something you didn't know before, take a moment and click that like button. I really appreciate it. And of course, nothing is perfect, and there are a couple of things that I wish Anker would have done differently, or maybe they can update in the future. First is, when I got the C300 DC and decided to turn it on, check it out, I could not figure out how to turn it on. Now, I know this seems like a simple thing. I pushed the button, held it in for a couple of seconds, pushed it multiple times, did the double punch thing. I just couldn't get it to turn on, and I was kind of frustrated, and I thought, well, I must have gotten a bad unit. Well, I found through trial and error that the way to do this is you have to push and hold for at least 5 seconds. Then you'll see some lights come on and you can let go, knowing that the unit is going to start up. Now, to turn it off, you only have to do it for 2 seconds or so, and then it will power down. So it's not a big deal if you know that, but if you don't, it's really frustrating. And second, if you've watched this channel at all, you know I'm kind of OCD about covers and cases and protection. And that's one of the reasons I don't take like the protective film off of things. I leave it on there for a while to protect it, keep it nice. Well, none of these ports have any covers on them. You can see I can stick my fingers right in the ports here. And if you're out hiking or just walking or even just sitting in your yard and bugs happen to go into ports or sticks, leaves, dust, what have you, that could perhaps cause some damage or at least make it work not as well. So I'd love to see some little covers that maybe slide up and down or maybe just swing in place, captive so you don't lose them, but something so that you could protect these things while they're not in use. These are all impressive in their own way, and if you're thinking about getting any of these, not only will I leave links in the description so you can find out more information, pricing, and where to get them, there's also a Black Friday discount that's happening, and I'll put that information below as well, so go check that out. I always say the only thing better than buying a product you're excited to own is buying a product you're excited to own at a great price. If you made it to the end of this video and you're stoked by what you saw, comment stoked in the comments below. Thanks for being here, I appreciate it. See you in the next one.